So I'm going to speak from the heart here. There's always going to be different sides to every story, and the public testimony was very eye-opening and heartfelt on both sides. What this resolution spoke to me, or how it spoke to me, was for Puna, and it's clearly came across that this is not just a Puna problem, but more of a challenge that Ka'u may face too in other parts of our island. And so we have areas to grow in, and that's what this speaks to. For me, this is not a matter of want. This is a necessity. Puna needs police officers, and we may need training as well, but we need police officers. I really feel that in this circumstance, for what this resolution speaks to, I am more of a conduit here than a writer. I'm just trying to bring what my community asked me for to the forefront. I did choose to ask first. It was told to me that a great legislator can make great gains verbally, and I did spend some time in different offices talking to different people. And what it came down to was that I felt I needed to write this resolution to verbalize it and give the public a chance to come out and talk and voice their opinions, whether it be negative or positive. And that's why this is here. That's why we're talking about this. Some basic facts for everybody. We are 50,000 people plus. In 2020, we'll see real census numbers for how many people are in the Puna area. We are almost 100% rural. We're the size of Oahu, as mentioned again and again and again, and we are serviced by 8 officers, many of whom are family and friends. And if you speak to something like what we dealt with last year and the amount of homicides and different events that we went through as a police force and as a community, I can tell you that I see a need here. This also does bring about that the police force that we have, it has had a hard time managing our expectations. And I feel another part of this is a community awareness for how to deal with crime. And this is a piece to me of a multifaceted approach to how to make our communities better. And I think that's really important to understand is 2 more police officers is not going to fix all of our problems. It is going to help, though, and it is a start. Along with that needs to come community awareness, the willingness of the community to participate in making our own communities better and bring back that feeling that we used to have a long time ago that a lot of you spoke to. Some key words for this was preemptive. This is a preemptive move, looking at our census numbers that are coming, and effective, and being effective in our district. That's what moved me to write this, and I urge my fellow council members to support it if you will. I know this is not your district, but I ask for your support in this. Thank you.
Councilwoman Kirkowitz.
Thank you, Chair Villegas. Just got to give some props and shout outs to my fellow council member, Mr. Kaneli E. Kleinfelder. Thank you for listening to community and creating a space for all of us to share in this way. I wrote down everyone's name and took track of everything that you said, and I'm moved by it. I'm also a little surprised by some of the things that I heard, but again, I think having this space to talk openly about our experiences is very productive in how we look to address any type of issue and situation. I do want to share that I have taken the time to talk to some of our officers, including my friend Jenny's husband, Officer Dwayne Wipa, and my staff and I spent a few hours with Captain Brisky and his team at the Pohoa station to just talk story, build that relationship, really understand what it's like for them to be out there. And it's stressful. It's incredibly stressful for them to have such a small force. They need support. They need more bodies in order to take that stress off. But they also need training. They need support. Because I think you're right. We have a lot of issues within our district that are very sensitive: domestic violence, substance abuse, people that are struggling with disabilities. We need to ensure that our officers have the training, the support that they need in order to approach the situation in a Puna way. So I think in addition to asking for funding for police personnel, and the mayor has in his proposed budget increased funding for personnel in Puna and Ka'u, I think we need to take a step back and look at the system in a holistic way. Do our officers have the resources, the tools that they need to be effective? We can get in more bodies, but if those police officers don't have the tools that they need, how are we going to ensure they're successful? How are we going to ensure that all of us as our community are safe? I do want to point something out that I was able to learn during my meeting with police officers a couple of weeks ago, and that is I asked them about what kind of calls they got. They talked about substance abuse, domestic violence, assault, abandoned vehicle, squatters, but also lots of calls about suicide ideation. And so Lieutenant Watanabe mentioned an HRS in which the Department of Health is supposed to allocate a mental health emergency worker in each county. Police are supposed to be able to call someone in that arena and say, hey, someone is a danger to themselves potentially and potentially to the community. We need you to come down and do a psych evaluation. Right now, our officers have no one to call. And that's scary. As a county, we should be very scared because we're opening ourselves up to a liability here. And so let's take a look at the system, right? Let's see where the gaps are and start being really strategic about where we put our resources in. I'm going to support you 100%, Matt. And I think that with the Budget Ad Hoc Committee, we can talk about ways to increase funding in creative ways. I don't think people want to see more tax increases. I think we've got to put interesting ideas on the table. One of the things I'm thinking of working through, and it's something I'm starting to talk about with Corporation Council, is if we want to increase funding, how can we do it in a palatable way to really build trust within the community? And so on your real property tax, right? What if there was a box that you could check off? That was optional, right? Let's just test the waters. It'll be optional. But similar to you getting a new driver's license or signing up to register to vote, you can check a box, $3 to public library or $5 to public campaign. What if on your real property tax bill, you can just check a box? Money to go directly to public safety. That's police officers. That's our firefighters. That is our prosecutors. We want to make sure that the whole spectrum that's involved in safety gets some of that. So it's something I'm thinking about. It's a little more, I think, palatable because it's optional. But if we start there and really identify where we could put those funds, I think we will slowly rebuild trust within community. Because at the end of the day, we are one community. We all have to support each other because that's the Kako thing to do. So with that, I yield the floor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkowitz. Ms. Leloy?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, attaboy, Mr. Kaniali Kleinfelder. You created a space to have a difficult conversation. It's no secret my husband is a detective with the police department. And so for me, I cannot support this resolution 100%. I have to support it 1,000%. Springboarding off of everything Ms. Kirkowitz says, the families, the stress on the families. And I just got a mahalo Larkin and Jen for being here. Because I walk that blue line just like your husbands do. And the amount of safety net that the wives and the families and the children and the mothers and the fathers provide. That alone, you cannot put a price tag on. this is a smart way forward. I just really wish that the police chief was here today to really feel the emotion in this room and what the community is asking for. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Leloy. Ms. David?
Mahalo, Chair Villegas. And just want to say to Councilmember Kaneali Kleinfelder that at first glance, looking at this resolution, to just, request that more funding be allocated. On its face, it looks like a regular piece of legislation. But because of those efforts, I think we were made aware of how socially impactive this request is. It's not only for Puna, but it's this entire island, because in different districts we have pockets of people that go through the same thing. Most of them do not come out, and thank you, everybody, for coming out and sharing with us both sides of this very serious problem that I think the county faces. How we go through it, I like the suggestions by our council members, and I think we as a body need to start someplace, because if we let this go any longer, whatever the solution is, I think we have to find something and do something, whether it's education, whether it's working with other agencies like the Department of Health that you're referring to. We have to all come together to help all of our families, and especially our police and fire, who give us protection. I mean, they deserve everything that they can get, and regardless, I think some of the very extreme stories on both ends of this subject matter is something that I really wasn't aware of. And that brings this subject matter into a different light for me. And I don't think, like someone said, just adding bodies will not do it. And I think we have to protect our police force and fire people at the same time. So it's more than just what you said. But I support this resolution wholeheartedly, because I know there's more stories than what we're hearing in this room today, and more issues that we have to, as a body, address, and for the benefit of our communities, all of our communities. So, thank you very much, Mr. Kaneali Kleinfelder. So I will be supporting your resolution. Aloha.
Thank you, Ms. David. Chair Chung?
No, thank you. I had a conversation with my wife a few years ago that really summed up all of the thoughts that were raised today. I asked her, hey, don't you think we could really use more police officers, right, on our island? And she looked at me and she goes, well, all depends. And I said, well, it depends on what? She said, well, whether they're good officers, right? And I really think that as I said, sums up the two sides. From our perspective, from the county council's perspective, I want to really take my hat off to Matt. He's taken an aggressive stance at addressing a long-standing problem in the Puna and, of course, Kou areas, and really the whole island. I mean, we really should be beefing up our police presence. But it's up to the administration, and like Ms. Leloy said, I really wish the chief of police were here too, or at least his administration, to listen to the concerns, because it's really up to them to make sure that we have a finely tuned police force. Again, though, echoing what Ms. Leloy said, and I wanted to say that to those in the audience who really had a bad experience with the police department. Those guys are under a lot of pressure. I mean, I would hate to be in their position where, especially given the lack of manpower in those areas, and they're really remote areas, very, very dangerous. I wouldn't want to be put in that situation. So I think from our side, it behooves us to provide more funding. That's what we do here. We provide the funding. It's up to the administration to do the implementation and the training. But at least from our side, we got to make a real strong move to get more police officers on the ground. So I support this 100%. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, Chair Chung. Ms. Eoff?
Thank you. There's not too much more I can add, but I think what I heard and what I feel is really important for us to take in from all of the testimony and what my fellow council members have said is that if we have enough officers and they're trained well, we will take the pressure off of each of them to a certain extent so that the interaction that they find themselves in with the community will go better, will go smoother, and there won't be as much intense bad reactions in certain situations. That would be the hope, I guess. And so I think that more police officers, probably definitely, I read it in the mayor's message too, is a focus for Puna. And so I think you're on point. But as Mr. Chung and others have said, there are needs in lots of other districts too. We do have escalating crime happening in Kona too, and the officers are stressed. So I'm not sure how we're going to deal with that. It's sort of a change in not only demographics, but change in times. But I hate to see us going the way of a lot of cities in the mainland, and I hope we can figure out a way to combat that crisis from occurring here on this beautiful island. So, but thanks, Matt, for the discussion, and thank you, everybody, for coming out and testifying and sharing your experiences.
Thank you, Councilwoman Eoff. If that's all for discussion, then I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? We have 7 ayes. And with that, I'd like to call for a motion to, to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? So we have 7 ayes, 0 noes, and it was so moved by Miley David, or Sue Leloy, and seconded by Ms. Kirkowitz. Sorry, David. They were pointing at each other.